And I'm sorry I didn't get to know her, but I feel like I've gotten to know her, and I feel like she's maybe with us. And through this publication and the program and the audio, I mean, her work keeps living on, and her devotion to healing. Again, art is healing. It brings us together. It helps us all.
And greetings and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve, and the good they do. And on today's show, one of the primary objectives today for NASA, the National Air and Space Administration, is sending American women to the moon. The name of the mission is Artemis, the Greek mythological being who was the twin sister of Apollo, which of course was the mission name for the original moon landings, which featured just men. And Artemis, of course, was the goddess of the moon. Well, here on Earth, we are celebrating on today's show a different Artemis, but one just as lofty and inspiring. It's the 45th anniversary of Artemis Journal, which showcases the artists and poetry of the Blue Ridge Mountains and beyond. On September 1st, Artemis hosted a release party at the Tallman Museum in Roanoke of its 45th annual publication. And today I am honored to talk to the founder and still editor of Artemis Journal, Jerry Rogers, who will share the journal's humble origins as a place and space where women suffering from domestic violence could share their stories, all the way to today, where it ranks among the pantheon of prestigious journals. But first, I am Michael Hemphill, the creator and host of this radio show, Buzz for Good, as well as the TV show Buzz that airs every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. on Blue Ridge PBS. Each episode, we feature a nonprofit organization and the great work that it does in our communities. And we invite in a team of creative marketing professionals affiliated with the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke who donate their time and talent to help these nonprofits achieve more buzz. In our newest episode, our 35th and season 3 finale, aired this past week on Blue Ridge PBS, starring Camp Altamont, a gorgeous 850-acre outdoors destination in eastern Montgomery County, Virginia. And I hope that you will visit our YouTube channel at Buzz for Good, that's BUZZ, number 4, good, to check it out. You can also follow us via our website, buzzforgood.com, as well as our other social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all at Buzz for Good. I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the Roanoke Cultural Endowment, which works to provide long-term funding solutions for Roanoke's arts and cultural organizations, as well as Partners in Financial Planning, a Southwest Virginia-based financial management firm, partnersinfinancialplanning.com, and Friendship, a senior living community serving all of the Roanoke Valley. More at friendship.us.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, before we begin with Artemis Journal, I want to take a moment to share with you another exciting event coming up this fall that features the artistry of our Blue Ridge Mountains. Friends of the Blue Ridge has just announced its second annual Blue Ridge Jamboree, which will take place November 2nd at the Jefferson Center in Roanoke. The theme of this year's Jamboree is On the Rise, a talent showcase for vocal, instrumental, spoken word, and visual artists ages 25 and younger. Friends of the Blue Ridge is currently accepting audition submissions for the Jamboree, and those individuals and groups selected will receive up to $500 to perform on stage at Jefferson Center. Visit BlueRidgeJamboree.com to learn more, or BlueRidgeFriends.org. Now, among the artists who have already auditioned and been accepted is the multi-talented Addie Levy, whose performance on the mandolin you have been enjoying while I have been talking about the Blue Ridge Jamboree. So please check out BlueRidgeJamboree.com for artist entry information, ticket information, or to be a sponsor. And now, please join me in celebrating the 45th anniversary of Artemis Journal with my conversation with founding editor Jerry Rogers. Well, it is my honor to have here on Buzz for Good Jerry Rogers, who is the editor of Artemis Journal, joined by Skip Brown, who is one of her board members, as well as the producer of the podcast Artemis Speaks. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. So, first of all, congratulations. 45 years. That is very impressive. Very impressive.
I know. And I'm only 39, so go figure how is this new math?
Right. So,
I never imagined it would keep going like this. It's wonderful.
And so you were the founder?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever think that you would be celebrating the 45th anniversary of Artemis Journal?
I never imagined what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
I was taking it one step at a time. I had been hired to open up a women's counseling center at the local YWCA in Roanoke. And there's some grants from Total Action Against Poverty and the YWCA. I actually turned them down because I had been trying to save the world as a young 23-year-old in DC, and I just decided nobody was asking my opinion. And so I just decided I needed to do my own work and forget about the world. And I had committed to my photography, and I was trying to start up my photography business when I was offered this job. And I turned him down a couple of times, told him where I was at, that I would volunteer, and I love the idea. I mean, I'm all for women's issues and rights. And Bristol Harden, the head of TAP at the time, came back and said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a grant to do a photographic study of mountain women coinciding with opening up the Women's Center. And you can incorporate your art into this social program. So how could I say no? It was just meant to be. I could have my cake and eat it too, and I jumped in full force. And I had no idea where it was going to go when we opened up the Women's Center. One of the most frustrating things about this situation with our clients was, domestic abuse. Mm-hmm. And we saw it time and time again, and no matter how much job counseling, food stamps, whatever we could do, get them out of a dangerous situation, they kept going back. And I understand that, I understood how that happened. And yet I thought we need to come up with something that will maybe work on a deeper level and give these women some tools, give them something. And I just came up with, let's start writing workshops. Let's see where all that goes. And I asked some friends, some professional writers, to volunteer, and they did. And we were off and running, and started out slow. The women we could finally get there, were shut down and weren't dealing with things well. But eventually, through the support system of a writer's workshop and other women, they started opening up, and they started writing some pretty decent stuff. And I'm like, well, what are we going to do with this now? And I just came up with this idea of let's publish. Who knows where it'll go? I had no idea about publishing, but something told me that we needed to do this. And so I picked out a great archetype lunar goddess, Artemis. She represents strength and, independence, and she's a caretaker for wild animals and young maidens. She's a lunar goddess. She's a protectress of childbirth, and she's the bringer of light. And I thought, well, that's just like the perfect archetype goddess, and that's how it started.
Well, I got to say, going back to my childhood, I loved Greek mythology.
Yes.
And
Yes.
for whatever reason, maybe this is why I now have three daughters and no sons, but
Good.
Artemis was always my favorite.
Yes.
She was just a badass, in
Yeah.
the Greek mythology stories that I was reading. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Huntress.
yeah, just awesome. So yeah, there's the protector, yeah, quality to her, but there's also the warrior. And
Yes.
I imagine that's kind of what led you to in that direction.
It did, because I felt like these women needed to find some strength to
Hmm.
deal with what they have to deal with. And it's not easy. A lot of them have children, they're, don't have jobs, whatever. But I thought, I'm going to give them one of the best weapons of all, and that's the power of their voice
Hmm.
and their words. So the power of art can be, you know, it's hard to deny that once you get into it.
Yeah.
And so we were off and running. First 2 years, we just published women, artists and writers, and we had a little money. And I'd look back at the earlier journals, and it wasn't on archival paper, and it wasn't. Some of them were stapled, but we were doing it, and people got really into it and started submitting. And our third year, we had a man sneak in, changed his name from Robert to Roberta. We thought we were publishing a poem by a woman, and it
Hmm.
turns out it was Robert. And so we had to make some decisions, and the people around me I'm working with, they're all like, oh my God, we have a man in our journal. And I'm like, well, it's maybe time to evolve. There's some good guys out there, and they want to join us. So, strength is in numbers. Let's go. And so that's how it is, and how it was. And it's just evolved to now we're have so much diversity in our writers and our artists, and we feature regional artists and writers here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, but our reputation has grown, and we're getting submissions and publishing from people as far away as Italy and England,
Wow.
California.
Yeah.
And it's just hard to turn that down when you see such great work and they want
Hmm.
to support us.
Well, before we kind of fast forward to where we are now with Artemis Journal, going back to those first couple of years when you're primarily featuring the work of women who have been victims of domestic violence, is there one particular story that you could share about the impact of writing their stories, claiming their voices, had on one of those victims?
Well, I had a volunteer who had come through the program as a client, and then she moved through her personal challenges, got a job, got stronger, and she started volunteering for our organization and running a few writer workshops as well. So, sometimes you'll see victims of domestic abuse who are in relationships. I had one woman who was in her marriage for 40 years,
Mm.
and just this revolving door, and it just never ended. And I just had hoped that somehow this could make an impact, and I think it has. I hear from a lot of the former earlier clients, and they follow us and they still submit, and so that's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Jerry Rogers, editor of Artemis Journal, which is celebrating its 45th anniversary edition, coming out September 1st. You could go to artemisjournal.org to order your own copy. Who are some of the artists featured in the 45th anniversary edition?
We have such a great array of artists and writers. Nikki Giovanni, which a lot of people know here in this region and beyond. I mean,
Yeah.
she's an international recognized poet, published 30 something books, and she's been working with Artemis since the 80s, and
Mm.
now on my board as a distinguished poet. And she opens up our book with a poem called A Toast to Poems. And so, we got Nikki. These are some of the big names. We have Natasha Trethewey, who former U.S. Poet Laureate, nominated by Barack Obama. And she served 2 terms. We've got a poem by her. We have had her several years. She really supports us and sends us poetry. We have several poet laureates from Virginia: Ron Smith, Carolyn Creeder Ferranda, just to name a few. And it's, we have these superstars, but we also, our mission is to encourage first-time submitters, younger writers, and artists. So we try to encourage that. And actually, I'll mention that Nikki Giovanni, who just retired as an English professor at Virginia Tech, has a program, actually a poetry contest, along with the former head, president of the college. I think he's now deceased, but it's the Giovanni Steger Poetry Contest. It's the biggest poetry contest in the country. They have thousands of dollars of awards for these students, which is really interesting. And so we collaborated with Virginia Tech, this poetry contest, and Nikki, to encourage younger writers. And so we have published 5 of the top contest winners in the book as well.
Would you mind sharing one of those poems with us?
Sure. I'll have to grab it.
Okay.
I have it. I'll do the award winner. Hold on.
Yeah, please.
So I'm going to read Joshua Ward, his poem, The Drawing Night, was the top winner. Black masses of mountain flesh upheave on all sides, shimmering with the toad chorus. The stars emerge from their burrows, the tatum lucium of their existence, peppered across the cosmos, reflects the mountain field in Virginia. The song of oven birds hang like fog until morning, while the field sparrow is awake like me, singing onto the wonder of night, this drawing night. It calls forth all the light that is not even our own, the rubies of whippoorwill eyes by porch light, the shimmering of ascendant insects, and the glowworms parading in the grass. Foxfire fruits rise like green flames from coals of rotting oak, and speaking unto the curtain, seethe softly, the darkness is complete.
Lovely. Lovely.
He's an undergraduate Virginia Tech student, as the 4 other winners. And I think she had 50, 60 people submit, and it's judged, juried by the faculty. Yeah. So that's just one aspect of our mission, is to encourage first-time artists and writers. Skip Brown also has encouraged musicians to be involved with Artemis, and his pianist is accompanying his reading of the poem. My associate editor, Julia Fallon, fabulous woman, ex-librarian, poet, dynamo. She happens to be a harpist, and she is mentoring a young woman, PhD student at Tech, on the harp, and she performed at our launch last night, opening up the program. So there's just different ways, interns, this and that come into our program.
Returning to Nikki Giovanni, what a treasure. Yeah. What an absolute treasure she is.
Oh my God.
She's internationally known, but is like among the most approachable, generous people I know. I remember I was oh, 15 or so years ago. It was right after the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007 when she gave such an inspiring, speech poem there at that event. I just recently rewatched it and was again brought to tears and chills.
Ladies and gentlemen, Virginia Tech University Distinguished Professor of English and celebrated author, Nikki Giovanni, will deliver closing remarks.
We are Virginia Tech. We are sad today, and we will be sad for quite a while. We are not moving on. We are embracing our mourning. We are Virginia Tech. We are strong enough to stand tall tearlessly. We are brave enough to bend to cry, and sad enough to know we must laugh again. We are Virginia Tech. We do not understand this tragedy. We know we did nothing to deserve it, but neither does a child in Africa dying of AIDS, neither do the invisible children walking the night away to avoid being captured by a rogue army, neither does the baby elephant watching his community be devastated for ivory, neither does the Mexican child looking for fresh water, neither does the Appalachian infant killed in the middle of the night in his crib in the home his father built with his own hands, being run over by a boulder because the land was destabilized. No one deserves a tragedy. We are Virginia Tech. The Hokie Nation embraces our own and reaches out with open heart and hands to those who offer their hearts and minds. We are strong and brave and innocent and unafraid. We are better than we think and not quite what we want to be. We are alive to the imagination and the possibility. We will continue to invent the future through our blood and tears, through all this sadness. We are the Hokies. We will prevail. We will prevail. We will prevail. We are Virginia Tech.
By what she was able to accomplish in that moment. But it was in the aftermath of that where I was on the Montgomery Floyd Regional Library Board at that time, and we were trying to get started a foundation and, sent an invitation to her, thinking, well, she's probably not going to attend. But she came. She was so kind. She spoke. She helped us raise money and just didn't ask for anything other than, just and just seemed so appreciative of the opportunity to be there. I'm in awe of her. I truly am.
Well, she is. She's so generous with her time. She supports local endeavors. She's been with us since the 80s, and we've had multiple fundraisers with her. Of course, she draws the crowd. She gets the people out, and she is such a treasure. We call her our fairy godmother at Artemis. She comes and sprinkles her fairy dust wherever she can and helps us raise money, and we just love her. I just found out, and I remembered once I read it, that she was commissioned by the National Public Radio, All Things Considered, to create an inaugural poem for President Barack Obama. And the poem, entitled Roll Call, A Song of Celebration, ends with the following enthusiastic, optimistic 3 lines. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So, that became an anthem back then, and we were all, of course, thrilled and happy. And she can put into words, things that all of us struggle to enunciate. And she's quite amazing, really amazing.
Where would Artemis Journal be without her?
Well, it takes a village, and we stand on the shoulders of so many wonderful people who, through the years, have dedicated time and effort and volunteered. I mean, we're a volunteer organization, but people believe in the mission and they love the product that we produce. So yeah, Nikki is one of the basic foundation building blocks of our organization. And we're thrilled to still have her around and to join in and celebrate poetry and art. And yeah, she's a real treasure for our region.
Well, again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Jerry Rogers, who's editor of the Artemis Journal, a annual publication. Well, how about you describe it for me?
Well, we do feature and emphasize and give, we amplify the works of our regional artists and beyond. And, often artists and writers are, closeted way making their work and can be rather isolated. So we, bring the community together through a beautiful print journal. And then we have our launch annually at the Taubman Museum. And, it's just amplifies and brings into the light all these wonderful pieces of works of, poetry and art. And, I believe we are a channel or a portal for this kind of energy to come through. And, like other organizations, the Taubman Museum is just such another gem in our community. And we're so fortunate to be able to collaborate with them. Cindy Peterson, the director, the Ambassador Nick and Jenny Taubman have been so supportive. There's just, it takes a village, and we are so fortunate to have this kind of energy behind the project. And I'm surprised. I never envisioned when I first started these writing workshops that we would still be going. Mm-hmm. But it just Artemis has her own life. I feel like I'm often just following directions and, working my tail off to meet this deadline or file with the IRS or, just all the business sides of it. But I do believe that the original intention was to help people. And when you have the right intention, then things are going to happen because you're doing it for the right reason. And so many people feel enriched, encouraged, stimulated by the efforts that we do. So here we are, happily celebrating.
Yeah. Well, you were sharing with me earlier about the impact that it had on, women who were originally served by Artemis, those who were victims of domestic violence. Today, is there, a story that you could share about Artemis's impact on either the people who are on its pages or people who are reading its pages?
Yes, I have a story. I think this is a great story. And this was featured at our launch at the Taubman Museum on September 1st. There was an artist, Bob Roche, who submitted his work this last year. We open up our call for submissions 1 month in October. We never know what's coming in. It's always challenging and interesting to see everything. And Bob Roche, actually oncologist turned wood sculptress, put in as, submitted his work, beautiful work, but he also had a footnote. He submitted a poem by Dr. Sandra McGlann. And he said, if you want this poem, and we collaborated together to make the art and the poetry, you'll have to contact her husband because she's now deceased. And, his work caught our eye. And this is the work that Skip Brown, my audio editor, recorded and was presented at the launch. So one thing led to another. It got my attention. Of course, we're busy with a lot of different submissions and just going through that process of picking out what we're going to publish. So I called Bob and got to know him. We had only published him the year before, but his work is outstanding. And he told me the story. He said, Dr. McGlann, Sandy, and I we're good friends, and both independently married to others, but we collaborated through our friendship. I would make an art piece, she would write a poem. She was a professor at Roanoke College. And during this process, she developed breast cancer. And he's an oncologist. He said, but I wasn't treating her. I was her friend, but I gave her advice. And I saw her through the initial stages, and it went into remission, which was quite wonderful. And then shortly thereafter, it came back full force, had metastasized, and she was given the grim reality that she would, in fact, not have long to live. So the poem that they collaborated on, and the last poem she wrote before she passed was River Sequence. And you'll hear that poem today. And, you know, it's just a pretty remarkable story because I didn't know Sandy. I had published her previously, always liked her work. And so now I'm getting to know her on a different level. She actually had a blog in which she documented the process of going through treatments and just with such courage. I mean, showed pictures with her no hair, bald head, you know, smiling, big smile, and talking about the process. And then she devoted time to the Keeling Healing Arts program at Carilion in Roanoke. So she was counseling people through that, sharing her work. I mean, such courage. And I'm sorry I didn't get to know her, but I feel like I've gotten to know her, and I feel like she's maybe with us. And through this publication and the program and the audio, I mean, her work keeps living on, and her devotion to healing. Again, art is healing. It brings us together. It helps us all. And, you know, so that was a wonderful aspect of this year's journal, and how we can help with the healing process for others, you know, who read this and get to know us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, given that Skip Brown, who is joining us here on this call, who is also a board member of Artemis, as well as has a recording studio in Roanoke. Given that this is where his story comes in, let me take a moment to introduce Skip to this show. All right, Skip, so you got involved with Artemis Journal by producing a bi-monthly podcast that started called Artemis Speaks. So how did you first get connected with Jerry to even, you know, be in a position to do this?
Well, I've known Jerry for a long time, and I produce Festival in the Park here in Roanoke, and we brought Jerry and Artemis in years ago with a booth to showcase her authors, her artists, and after doing that for a few years, we decided at a Commission for the Arts meeting that it would be a great idea to do a podcast. And the technical challenge was non-existent for us because I have a whole studio here. And we have brought folks in via Zoom from literally all over the world. And then we've had numerous people that come in and join us face to face in the studio. And so we've been producing that twice a month ever since. And that's how many, Jerry? How many have we done? How many?
39,
podcasts?
third year, 3
Wow.
seasons.
Third year.
Yeah, we started in the pandemic.
Yeah, and it's such a wonderful compliment to, you know, the written piece. Then you have, you know, these actual interviews with writers, you know, who are featured in the journal. You know, just makes for just a lovely pairing, you know, for people who are devotees of Artemis Journal. Well, so Skip, I know our time with you today is limited. So what were your contributions for the 45th anniversary edition of Artemis?
Well, the primary thing is the cover art is supported by a spectacular poem.
Right.
And the irony of this, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want, but the week before Jerry brought me the poem, I had a young lady, a pianist, in doing original piano work. And so we finished all 24 of her tracks in 2 sessions. And as I'm sitting there listening and just enjoying her playing, her performance of this original score, the poem came in and it was broken down into 4 segments. And she had one piece that was broken down into 4 segments. And I looked at that and I thought, oh my, this is a perfect voiceover opportunity. So we took her music with her consent and her parents' thrilled consent, and I voice-overed the poem. And then we built some graphics that will be supporting this at the launch at the Taubman, this for the annual kickoff of this year's journal. And I think it turned out pretty good, and I think Jerry was happy with it.
Yeah, well, tell me about the poem itself.
Well, it's the story of a woman who was working her way through a life-threatening illness, and associating her walk into the end of her time on the planet with the flow of a river, and the conception and misconception of how we as humans view time. And it is rather stunning. It is rather dramatic. It's kind of a take your breath away as you listen to it. And as I read the work that she wrote, I read her actual writing. The voiceover was very difficult. I had to stop it because I teared up. It choked me up over and over and over. And I bet you I recorded that 4 simple paragraphs. I bet you I recorded them a dozen times each until I got the cadence right, the flow right, and my breathing right, and I didn't choke up. It's a masterful, very powerful poem. And the piano work just lifted it to another place. One of her very close friends actually is one of the artists and is featured this year on the cover of the journal. And he, ironically, is an oncologist, but not her treating physician, just her friend.
Okay.
So he designed a piece that just carried her words perfectly. And then, so the combination of the piece, which was at the launch for people to see, it's on the cover of the journal, and then we did the first voiceover narration for the audience. So it quite impactful, really turned out really well.
This moment, like a fat, round plum, smooth as stone, tumbled downstream, at the edge of stillness, poised to roll. How long does it take a rock to travel the length of a river? How long does it take a mind to wind its way through a memory? Hold the present juicy and heavy in the palm of your hand. Loosen the fist of time and lean back, eyes closed, into turbulent water. Let the current lift your feet. A river begins at a clear, cold spring and flows one direction. Riffles, runs, pools, and again. Time, too, moves forward in its eternal current. Past, present, future. We try to contain it in rows of tidy boxes. Line follows line, page follows page. A map draws a blue line we can trace with a finger on folded paper. When you stand in the river and look to its future, the current presses hard against the backs of your legs. Yet we live days that feel like minutes. Minutes that enlarge, engulf years. The river, too, seeps sideways into the soil of its banks, spreads wide and flat and far when it floods. Water evaporates up into mist, and fog falls back down as rain, each drop rippling out, mosaic of many circles. Still we float along, certain we know where the current will take us. Still we say, the river flows to the sea. At sea's edge, time passes more slowly than in higher climes, the scientists say. More slowly for feet than head. Are we drawn toes to tide because its pulse stretches our narrow days? Time, a wave rolling back on itself, a company of shimmering hourglasses that curl continuously toward the future until they end where they began. There is no time, the scientists say. Things happen. What if there is no time? Hard truth, strange comfort.
Well, he is on our board as our audio editor, and he has made such a difference in the quality of presentation that we make at the annual launch every year at the Taubman Museum. And the launch was spectacular with audio, music, video feed from Skip, who's back in the back on his magical board, pushing buttons and making it happen. And we had some wonderful guests. Nikki Giovanni showed up, and Laura Taubman and her band from New York City. We also, had Bob Roche, who is the oncologist turned artist, who turned in this piece along with Dr. Sandy McGlenn's poem. So we featured that, and that was pretty much the pinnacle of the program. And of course, Skip's rendition of reading along with his younger client, gifted pianist. It's just been a great addition. Plus, of course, we do the podcast. We have a lot of fun with the podcast, and we work out of Skip's studio, Final Track Studios, either Zoom or, in person. And just again, the stepping up to the professional quality of audio is so important when you're trying to get your message across. I mean, I publish, I print, and now Skip does the additional audio versions of our program. So it's been a gift and a great friendship, long time friendship, and we work well together. So, we collaborate and come up with all kinds of fun things to do.
Yeah, well, Skip, I know you got to go, so I'll just kind of leave you with this question. This is Artemis Journal was originally founded for women writers, and you obviously being a man, how have you been shaped by your involvement with Artemis?
Oh, the sensitivity of the writing is amazing. And Artemis was created decades ago, to support women in battered women's shelters, among other things. And, knowing that a portion of the revenue that Jerry receives for the book goes to women's shelters, it just makes me feel like, this is the right place to be, doing the right thing. And we've never worried about how much anything costs, because we just want it to be right. And there has not been from the moment I started working with this, every year there is the one or two things that just kind of knock me off my seat, and I have to back up and take a breath and just revel in how spectacular the writing and the artwork of these folks are.
Well done. Well, Skip, thank you so much.
When we first came up with the idea to publish, I didn't talk about Dorothy Gillespie. Do you know Dorothy Gillespie, the artist?
Yes, right.
Mural.
Murals in Roanoke. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't talk about that, and I don't know if you want to get into it, but when I came up with the idea of we're going to publish, well, an artist friend of mine, Lynn Yates, actually, we weren't even friends at that point, but she walked in to my office and said, I hear you're going to publish. And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, how would you like a cover by Dorothy Gillespie? She heard about it. And she's willing to donate your first cover. And I was like, whoa. Frankly, I didn't know her that well, but I quickly got up to speed, understood her acclaim, her international acclaim, and I thought, wow, sure, why not? And so things went rather quickly after that. I got to know Dorothy, went up to New York City, picked out an image, hung out with her, and that was on our first cover. Well, by that, it put us on the map because nobody would have probably noticed us. We're in the YWCA, what abused women poetry, whatever. But then Dorothy showed up, and she was very involved in the women's art movement in New York City, very much a vanguard pioneer. And so this was her hometown, Roanoke. So it just made perfect sense. So we put her on the first cover, and then that took off. It had a life of its own. Lynn and I were brainstorming, and we said, well, why don't we put a mural? Why don't we donate it as a mural into, the city of Roanoke? They didn't have any outdoor art. And that took off, and the business leaders got into it. And before I knew it, Dorothy Gillespie's coming down. We're going to have a champagne brunch in her honor and dedicate the mural and Artemis. And so we started out with a lot of fanfare. And that, again, by just a simple act of getting involved and donating your art or whatever. And it just set the tone, and we keep going. So very proud of that.
So Artemis, in some respects, is responsible for that gorgeous mural in Roanoke that is a Dorothy Gillespie piece of art.
Yes, that was the first cover of Artemis.
Wow.
And that's how that happened.
Okay.
I mean, not many people know that, but
I did not.
Yeah, I know. It's just like amazing. And
Yeah.
so, and we're still very involved with the Gillespie Foundation. Her son, Gary Israel, who runs it, he's one of my donors. And we put her back on the cover. She unfortunately was deceased, but we had her in 2020 as our cover, again, celebrating her and her work and honoring her. Well, I think about what we've done through all these years, and all the artists and writers that have come through our pages and poetry, presentations. And we have archived over 2,000 artists and writers. And that archival record is important because it shows the creative energy within our region, right here in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So we're quite proud of that. And of course, we do the podcast, Skip and I, and we've talked about that. And 3 years now into the making, and this was a suggestion by Douglas Jackson of the Roanoke Arts Commission when things kind of shut down in 2019, and we had to cancel our in-person launch at the Taubman. And Doug said, Jerry, why not do a podcast? And I'm like, oh, okay. I have no idea how that happens, what to do with that. And I let it percolate for a while. And then I thought, well, my friend Skip Brown can give me some advice. I did not expect him to say, after I said, it's been suggested I do a podcast. He goes, great, show up in 2 days with somebody, I'll give you 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And guess who I called? Nikki Giovanni. She was my first podcast guest. I thought she'll be great. She can talk. She is, so gifted. And I called her up and she said, sure, I'll be there. In fact, I know Skip. I just did an audio book with him. And so the circle just keeps happening. And, we're 3 years down the road with that. So that's just a wonderful aspect to the things we do. We're moving forward, have some great ideas for next year, but I got to take a break here. And then we'll get into it.
Right.
I'm gonna go play.
Yes, I got you. Well, again, Jerry Rogers, not only the editor, but the founder 45 years ago of Artemis Journal. You mentioned, you looking forward to taking a break, and then you'll start thinking about the 46th anniversary. How long is Artemis going to go? And, are there plans for, when you no longer have the time or capacity to be the leader of this, for someone else to take it on?
Our succession plan.
There you go. That's right.
Yes, I think about that. And, if it's meant to be, it will continue. I have younger editors involved. I hope I can pass it on to them. We shall see how all that goes. It's a tremendous effort and time consuming, and who has the time? Mm-hmm. So we have plans, and that's what next year's about, is the succession plans. Okay. So I hope, I'd love to pass it on to a school. How about a university? Virginia mm-hmm. Tech, mm-hmm. Collins, we'll see how it all plays out. And we're approaching some different organizations for grants to help us move to the next tier, where we can have, some administrative staff, help run this, because it is a tremendous endeavor. But it's so rewarding. I can't tell you the joy I get. Besides, I pull my hair out a little bit, but we do really have a good time with it, and we're so proud of it. And if anybody wants to purchase one of our books, please do, because we got to pay for the printing costs, which have skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. And so we have a shop on our website, www.artemisjournal.org. We also have books for sale at the Taubman Museum, or some of our local bookstores, Book No Further in Roanoke, and Blacksburg Books. So please buy our books so we can keep going.
Right. So you're here guaranteeing us that there will be a 50th anniversary that will be in 5 years. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I can't wait for that one. We'll bring out the best champagne yet. We'll celebrate.
Well, congratulations again on the 45th anniversary edition of Artemis Journal. Again, Jerry Rogers, editor and founder of Artemis Journal. Is there a particular poem in this issue that you would care to close us out with?
Yes. I mean, there's so many, it's hard to choose, but I'm gonna read Nikki Giovanni's poem, because it opens up the journal and sets the tone. Okay. So she wrote, it's called A Toast to Poems. We need a poem because sometimes we're lonely. We need a poem because we have sometimes lost our way. We need poems because the dog in the yard barking at the neighbors, and the soup is boiling over, and we're thinking, I'm sick of Earth. I'm going into space to find another life. We need poems because they tell us already, have a wonderful life here. Let's raise our glasses for how wonderful it is that poems take such good care of us. Nikki Giovanni.
Well, Jerry, thank you so much again, and congratulations.
Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for highlighting our program. Appreciate it.
Many thanks again to Jerry Rogers for sharing her time with me for today's show about the 45th anniversary of Artemis Journal. Stay connected with us throughout the week on our website, buzzforgood.com. That's buzz, B-U-Z-Z, 4good.com, as well as our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all at Buzz for Good. We will see you back here next time when we are back on air. Until then, continue being a buzz for good in your community. Bye now.